This episode goes out to Roberto. You're never nobody to us. Hi there, Garrett Robinson here. Welcome to the 11th episode of the Nightblade Epic Podcast Season 3. Hey listener, I just wanted to drop another quick reminder that if the Underrealm books are part of your holiday plans, as a gift for you or for someone else, you should order yours today. This year has played havoc on shipping times in the US and around the world, and it's getting harder and harder to keep books in stock. Bottom line, once I run out of the books I have on hand, I'm not getting any more until next year. So, today's the perfect time to go to underrealm.net/books and order the Underrealm full hardcover collection. It's 10 awesome books in 4 awesome volumes for one awesome price. Or you could get some books from the Nightblade Epic, the series you're listening to in this show, or any of the incredible Underrealm books on our site. Check them all out at underrealm.net/books. Okay, now it's time for today's episode. Today, you're getting Chapter 16 of Darkfire. When we left off, Lauren and her friends had just fought off a pack of satyrs and recaptured the wizard Zane. Enjoy! Darkfire, Chapter 16. The children were waiting where they had been left, staring west with wide and frightened eyes. As soon as Lauren and the men returned, with Zane slung across Jordel's horse once more, Jem and Annis sighed with obvious relief. Albern guided them on quickly, riding north again along the river, for he had told them there would soon be another place where the mountain pass dipped to the valley floor. There they could retreat into the heights. They had not eaten all day, but Jordel did not allow them to stop. Steadily they devoured the leagues until they reached the pass, where they went up and into the clouds once more. Always they looked behind them for the satyrs, but they never saw any. Once they were free from the valley floor, some of the thrill of excitement drained from Lauren, and she felt a great weariness settle in its place, along with a redoubled pain in her head. She slumped in her saddle, the sudden motion making her hurt still worse. As they rode through the rest of the day, she felt only moments from falling to the ground in sleep. The journey thus far had been taxing enough, and the day's excitement had nearly left her undone. Jordel finally let them halt just after sundown, and they climbed from their horses in silence. He must have seen the pain on Lauren's face, for he went to her at once and gingerly inspected the back of her head. "Does it still hurt?" "It is not so bad," Lauren said, though that was a lie, but she gritted her teeth, determined that she would not slow the party down. "It might have been," muttered Jem. "And we all know why," Annis agreed. "I hear the two of you," said Jordel in a warning tone. "Good," said Jem, louder now. "Let the wizard hear us too. We should never have gone after him." Jordel opened his mouth to answer, but Annis spoke first. "You know there is some wisdom in what he says. Mayhap I was wrong to say we should abandon him alone in the mountains where he would only starve to death, but keeping him with us only puts us in greater danger. Let us give him some provisions and the plow horse and then send him on his way, which is far away from us." "That horse is not yours to give away," said Albern, "though I will not say I disagree with you. So far we have faced little danger in the mountains, Jordel, other than that which Zane has brought down upon us. I promise to guide you safely through the pass, yet I find that vow ever harder to keep, and I would not be made a liar by this wizard, even if his mind is swayed by want of magestone." "We have survived so far," said Lauren. "We will survive until the end of the road. No danger has yet proved our equal. If we reach settled lands and still you wish to cut Zane loose, then I might not argue against you so strongly. But here in these mountains, a horse and some spare rolls of hardtack will not suffice to save him. He is too weak to fight, and using his magic has nearly killed him. Casting him out would finish the job." "How long, then, must we protect him?" said Annis. Though her voice had risen to a shout, it also sounded as though she might burst into tears. "I can hardly sleep at night for fear I will wake to find him standing over me, fire burning in his fist. Every time I see him from the corner of my eye, making some sudden motion on the back of Jordel's horse, I feel as though my heart will burst from fear. How long, Loren? How long will you make me ride with the burden of this terror? You say you wish to keep Jem and me safe, hiding us away in some strange noble's manor, yet you bring our greatest danger with us, and refuse to cut it loose." Her tears spilled then, and she turned away to cast her hood over her face. She made to run from them, away from the fire and into the darkness. Loren caught her arms and pulled her in close, holding her in an embrace. Annis sobbed into her chest, while Loren looked down in dismay. Over the top of Annis's head, she met Jem's gaze. "And you? Do you think I put you willingly in danger?" Jem did not meet her eyes, studying his dirty feet instead. "I said I would follow you," he mumbled. "That is not what I asked you," said Loren. "If you think I'm being foolish, tell me. That is one duty I will always ask of you, now and forevermore." When Jem looked up, Loren saw a fire in his eyes that heeded his words. "Then yes, I do think you are being a fool. Zane is dangerous. He has nearly gotten us all killed. He nearly killed you, and still you wince whenever you turn your head too quickly. Yet you are forever willing to forgive him, because you will not let him die, nor anyone else. It makes me fear for you, that one day you may spare the life of one who takes yours in return. And I am afraid that day is near, and ever closer the longer we keep Zane with us." Loren looked at Zane, curled in a ball with his hands tied behind his back, his legs held immobile by Jordel's rope. The wizard looked back in a cold fury. It was as if he did not recognize that she fought to protect him, to keep him safe from the others who wished him dead. And suddenly Loren wondered, what was she arguing for? Why did she fight so hard for him? Since the Birchwood, he had abandoned her more than once, had fought against her, had told her over and again that he did not wish for her company, and had put all their lives in danger. She turned to Jordel, seeking the reason she could not find for herself. "What do you say, Mystic? It is by your order that we have brought Zane this far." Jordel had sat silently through all this council, staring into their small fire. Flames danced in his eyes, and Loren was reminded of Zane's magic, the terrible light in his face when he conjured his spells. For a moment she feared Jordel had been swayed by the others. But when he spoke, it was not in answer to Loren. "I knew Zane upon the High King's seat," he said in a slow voice. "Or rather, I knew of him, for everyone there had heard of his deeds, this powerful young wizard from the academy. Often I would observe him at balls held by the nobility who live upon that island, for they have little to do with their time other than spending it in games of intrigue and politics that would bore young Jem here to death. Zane was always happy and quick-witted. His mind was as sharp with a barb as it was with his studies, and his words could sway others as easily as his magic could blast them. He did not enter into the intrigues of the seat, which held little interest for him, but he did enjoy toying with nobles, upsetting their plans and turning their schemes awry. There was no reason to it, other than that he loved to watch their faces fall as their petty machinations were undone. "You speak of this wizard here?" said Jem, pointing at Zane. "Hardly have I ever heard him speak so much as a word of wit. He is a sour man, not prone to laughter." "Much has changed since those days," said Jordel. "Not the least was what happened when he had just passed his 19th year, the year the Lord Prince was attacked upon the King's Road, kidnapped by bandits who wished to hold him for ransom." Loren and the children gasped, and even Albern's eyes flashed as he looked at Jordel with renewed interest. Tales were told of the Lord Prince across the Nine Lands, of his fair hair and smile that made lovers weep, his light and easy heart, his kindness and his compassion. The High King Enelin was well beloved throughout Underrealm, more so because her rule followed that of High King Trentor, who had embroiled many of the kingdoms in war. Though the throne had no heir by law, when Enelin died, most hoped the Lord Prince would be chosen to take her place by the council of the seat. Even Lauren, raised in a small village in the Birchwood, had grown up with that hope in her heart. But she had never heard this tale, that the Lord Prince had been in mortal danger, and from the looks on their faces, neither had Annis or Jem. "The news was as grievous to all then as it is to you now," Jordell went on. "All upon the seat despaired of rescuing his highness. Yet on the morning after the bandits sent their message of ransom, Zane entered the High King's hall. I say entered. He stormed in, throwing the doors wide with a great gust of wind. The guards all leaped forth with their weapons drawn, but Enelin bade them stay, for Zane had long had Her Majesty's favor. Zane went to the foot of the throne and knelt, and there he vowed to go forth and rescue the Lord Prince himself. He was a new graduate from the academy, untried and untested, though as I said many had heard of his prowess. Immediately the dean stood forth, calling Zane's boast unacceptable. The academy could not allow such a young wizard to go off alone on such a mad scheme. If wizards were needed, he would select his own from the academy's disciples and send them forth. I was young then, and not well versed in the ways of the High King's court. Yet the dean's words troubled me. All knew he bore no great love for Her Majesty, who did not heed his counsel and often thwarted his attempts to secure more power and coin for the academy. And there were rumors, whispers only, hidden behind hands, that mayhap the dean himself had arranged the kidnapping, as an excuse to remove the Lord Prince from the seat and distract the High King, leaving her with less attention to counter his efforts. "That would be a treason most high if it were true," said Alburn, "and I would not envy the dean his fate." "As I said, we knew it only for a rumor," said Jordell. But when the dean spoke, Enelin ignored him, as she so often did. She bade Zane to rise, and then she gave him her blessing upon the quest. And she promised Zane that if he should succeed, the favor of the Nine Lands would be upon him for the rest of his years, and he would be wed to whichever royal scion he found suitable, if they would have his hand. Zane shook his head and said this: "I thank you for your blessing and your gift, but I would save the Lord Prince without them. For once he and I shared a skin of wine, and he told me a joke, and still I want to smile whenever I think of it. So I owe him a debt, you see, of years of laughter, and that is not a debt easily cast aside." Then while the High King and the rest of the court sat there stunned, Zane turned on his heel and strode from the throne room. He took a horse from the stable and left the island, and no one heard from him for many days. We all thought he was lost, and many in the court wept anew, and some wore black veils of mourning. The High King wore a dark look throughout her days. But Zane did not die, as you surely have guessed. On the 14th day after he had left the court, someone found him collapsed by the side of the King's Road in Selvin, just over a league west of Garsek. The Lord Prince was with him, covered in his blood and trying to stanch the wound, for Zane had taken a knife in his belly. They fetched him back to the High King's seat in all haste, and she bade her greatest surgeons to see to his recovery. He drifted in and out of life for many days, and the Lord Prince never left his bedside. The Lord Prince told us that he had been brought into the woods not far from the seat, not far from the Birchwood either, as it turns out, and held there by bandits, including 2 wizards of the academy who were under the dean's orders. The dean, by the way, had fled the seat as soon as he heard the Lord Prince was recovered, though the mystics soon found him trying to secure passage to Dol Moon. We brought him back to die a traitor's death in the High King's dungeons. But in the bandits' camp, the Lord Prince thought himself lost. Then Zane arrived. The Lord Prince said the wizard's coming was swift and terrible, like the gathering of a winter's storm all at once. Scores of men were at that fort, but they had one great weakness. It was made all of wood. Zane burned it to the ground and all within it, bursting through the flames to rescue the Lord Prince from his cell. When he could not fend off all the bandits with his magic, he took up a sword. In the fighting, he took the knife in his gut, then cut off the head of the man who wielded it. By then he had freed the Lord Prince from his bonds, and together they fought free, and not one bandit left that fort alive. The Lord Prince had to drag Zane nearly the whole way to the road, expecting at any moment that he would fall dead upon the ground. When Zane finally woke upon the seat, he was not the man who had left to rescue the Lord Prince. I came to visit him then, for I was young and curious, and I got him alone when all others had left. There was a darkness in his eyes I had never seen there before, though as I said, I did not know him well. When I asked him if his wounds pained him, he shook his head, and then he said, "Well, yes, of course, but more painful is the memory of their faces." When I asked him who he meant, he shook his head and would not answer. Jordel's gaze turned to Zane, but the wizard still stared back at him with eyes full of hate. It was as though he had heard none of Jordel's words, or hated him even more for saying them. "That is the man I am trying to save," said Jordel quietly. "The man who risked his own life for the life of a friend, and to whom the 9 lands owe a great debt. It may not be my place to judge him thus, yet I do not think his debt is outweighed by the misdeeds that made him flee the seat, nor any of his actions since. In fact, I think all the kingdom still owe him a great deal, if the Lord Prince takes the throne one day, as we all hope." "As we all hope," murmured the rest of them in unison. Lauren looked at Annis, and the girl's eyes were shining. Jordel's voice rose again as he turned to Annis, and his words rang forth with conviction. "So there is the tale you all asked for. That is the man I place my faith in. That is the man I hope to recover from the curse of the Mage Stones. There are many powerful wizards in the 9 lands. Some are more powerful than Zane. Many of them would work for me more easily than he will, if I promised them a bit of the coin that is plentiful to my order. But I do not seek their services. I shall need more than power in the times to come. I shall need good hearts and stout minds not easily swayed by gold. Zane is one such, even if you cannot see it. And though he stands on death's door now, if I can do anything to pull him back from the threshold, I will." He turned from the fire and stood at the edge of the darkness to take the first watch. The rest of them sat quietly, staring into the flames. Even Annis was silent, and when her eyes flicked to Zane every few moments, Lauren saw that they were full of wonder, not anger or fear. Lauren hardly knew what to think. She knew only that, for whatever reason, she believed Jordel without doubt. Always Lauren had seen something in the wizard, some spark of spirit, a hint of nobility that showed itself only rarely, like a gleam of red glimpsed in the cracks of coal. Though she could hardly have guessed that Zane had done such a great deed in his youth, only to break the king's law and find himself pursued across Selvin by constables. Something had happened to twist the man. Something to turn him from the hero who rescued the Lord Prince into the bitter wizard who had abandoned Lauren upon the King's Road. And as she stared at Zane lying by the fire, soon asleep after his wearying day, she could only wonder what that had been. This has been a production of Legacy Books, written and narrated by Garrett Robinson. The music in this podcast was created by Will Musser. Check out his incredible work at willmusser.com. That's WILLMUSSER.com. Today's letter is R. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.